Welcome to another edition of the Rain Matter podcast. Our guest for this episode is Kushal Baghia from All In Capital. Through All In Capital, Kushal focuses on investing in early stage ventures and has supported more than 130 teams. We spoke about his formative years, his stints before All In Capital, and his thought processes with investing, among other tangents. I've been meaning to have Kushal on the podcast for a long time. It was quite fun to learn all about his journey. I thoroughly enjoyed this conversation, and I hope you do too.
Hey, hi Kushal. Welcome to Rain Matter podcast. Thanks for taking time out to do this. Bye.
Hi Dinesh, my pleasure. Thank you so much for having me here.
Hey, no, absolutely. I think we were just speaking just before recording that we've been wanting to do this for quite some time. So it's been a long time coming. And let me get started with some of the questions I had around the VC space. Right? I think a lot of VCs that I listen to, from Sequoia, Matrix, and some of the other VCs, I think everybody talks about their formative years and how that kind of embeds their thought processes. So, do you want to talk a little bit about your formative years, your early years, your schooling, your graduation, college, etc.?
Yeah, sure. So I grew up in a suburb of Mumbai called Mulund. I went to school in Thane, and it was a pretty typical middle class childhood. My dad used to be an engineer, and then he started his own business when I was maybe in my primary school or middle school, and my mom used to work at LIC, and then she became a housewife. So I think I had a lot of exposure to entrepreneurship as a concept because of my father. I saw him go from an employee to I have a memory of him coming home and saying I have quit my job and now I'm going to start a business. So it's some that journey of a founder is sort of something that I've seen closely because of the family background. But and then I think growing up, one thing that was a bit different about me was that I was a crazy reader. Like I used to just snort books that I would find anywhere. We didn't have the internet back then, so any magazine, comic, novel, textbooks also, if you leave them around in the house, I would be that kid who read the English textbook the day we got it, just for fun. So that was a bit of a quirk, but otherwise I was quite normal. And after college, like all other boys of our age, usually most other boys of our age, all of us wanted to do engineering, and we that's what I got into. Finally, we went to BITS Pilani, Goa. Did my mechanical engineering there from 2008 to 12, and yeah, I mean, entrepreneurship as a bug really bit me when I was probably at BITS. Till that time, I used to think that I'll be an entrepreneur someday, but I never had a trigger that I wanted to do it right after college. I had a mentor of mine called Professor Sunil Handa, who's a visiting prof at IIM Ahmedabad. So he had done a workshop on our BITS campus, which just blew my mind one day. And it like before that, I should not this concept that you can start a company out of campus or straight out after college was just not there. But after that workshop, I was like, yeah, this is also an option that you can consider. Um, and then simultaneously around that time, the Steve Jobs book came out. I had actually discovered Steve Jobs a year before that book had come out, and I read up whatever I could find about him, and I was very, very impressed by him, obviously, and was like, this is what I want to do in the world. Um, so me and a friend of mine then started a company. It was pretty much that we read a book and we were like, "हमको भी ये करना है, so let's do it," and like we did it. Which in hindsight is the classic wrong reason to start a company just because you want to start something, right? So, but anyways, we started. I started a business with a college friend of mine. Then started a business on campus. Then we started a tech company after graduating. Ran that for 4 years. That didn't really work out. Then I worked at Upgrad for a couple of years, and then after that is when I sort of stumbled my way into VC with FirstCheque. And then now I'm running my own fund, All In Capital. So yeah, that's been my journey. Pretty much been a Mumbai boy throughout, but also stayed a lot in Delhi, and of course college was in Goa. And Bangalore is like a place where I keep it's like a place I visit every month for the past 10 years. I've been spending 2-3 days a month in Bangalore. So yeah, that's been my life and my journey up till now.
Got it. And in terms of your engineering life, right, I think BITS Goa has been in the news recently also. I think as compared to Pilani, I think BITS Goa now is also almost equal in terms of the caliber of students that are coming out
Yeah.
there. Why BITS Goa and why mechanical engineering? How did that happen?
So mechanical engineering is because in 11, 12, my favorite subject was physics, and at that time I thought HC Verma I really like solving, so I should do like the favorite chapters within physics were mechanics, and I thought this is what I would love to study. Uh,
Right.
but so I didn't get into bits right after 12th. I took a drop. I went to Kota for a year. I spent a year there as well. And after a year, I was sick of Rajasthan, to be honest. I was like, I don't want to spend 4 years in the heat and the cold. Like, I just didn't like the place that much. Plus, I had kind of realized that it was important for me to be near civilization, like be near city center at least. So my top priorities were always like IIT Delhi or Bombay, and then if not that, then maybe BITS Goa. For some reason, that was always in my priority list. I got a program. I got civil at Pilani, I think, and my choice was civil Pilani or MEC Goa. I wanted to do MEC, and I also wanted to be in Goa, so it just made sense to take it up. In terms of caliber, yes, back then also BITS,
Got
unlike the IITs, right? The BITS has a very centralized curriculum and a very centralized, even the staff, like the actual campus was set up when it was set up, I think in 2004 or 5, half the profs were sent from Pilani to set up the Goa campus, just to make sure that the culture also transfers over and the processes, there's a certain organizational know-how that exists with the people who work there, right? So BITS actively tried to, and I think they successfully did it, even with Hyderabad and with Goa.
Right.
The other way it intermingles is we all have a common practice school system at BITS, which means so there are two internships which you have to compulsorily do over 4 years. So there's a 2 month internship after your second year, and there's a 4 month, 6 month, one entire semester you spend working at a company in your final year. This is also centrally managed. So typically you will
Got it.
end up working at the same company, or other people working there will be from Pilani and Hyderabad. So all of us have a lot of friends from because of our internships are common, right? We all have like 3, 4 friends minimum from the other campuses as well.
Okay.
Some courses are also run centrally. Like there was a course which they started called New Venture Creation,
Right.
where the classes this is BITS was quite ahead of its time. They did this when I was leaving 2012,
Right.
where the classes happened on webinars and students would attend across campuses. So they used to use, I remember, WebEx for this to make this work, but it worked, and like many of us sort of got our first brush on of entrepreneurship or understanding that these things also exist because of programs and courses like this. So BITS was awesome. It played a huge part in my formative years.
Got it. And I was speaking about this at my one of the earlier podcast also. I think engineering, I did my engineering from 2010 to 2014. So, the college I went to, which is RV College in Bangalore, not a lot of chatter about entrepreneurship back then, right? There weren't a lot of startups that were based out of Bangalore. Obviously, there were a few
Yeah.
larger startups back then, but I think the kind of volume we have today in terms of, every nook and corner, there's a startup and a VC, right? So
Yeah.
I don't think, it was there, but, it's quite refreshing to hear, BITS Goa kind of had that mentality even back then. I think you graduated in 2012. So I think way ahead of the time, way ahead of the curve.
Yeah,
in
so
terms of
I
how
wouldn't
they-
say it was very mainstream. It was like this fringe thing,
Yeah.
but it was there. Like if you were looking for it, you would find it.
Correct.
Plus, we had some
Correct.
people to look up to. Like at that time, the Red Bus acquisition had
Correct.
also happened. So Funny
Right.
became
Yeah.
like this
Yeah.
hero in the BITS community. Okay, he started a tech company and sold it. Raju Reddy, who started Sierra Atlantic, he became chairman of BITS, and they used to do a lot of events and talks around entrepreneurship. BITS even had an angel network called BITS Park, which is still active, where they would there was a bunch of angels from the US who would Bitsian angels who would invest in Bitsian founders starting companies. Grey Orange Robotics has started at that point. So we had some heroes we could look up to, and
Right.
obviously that played a huge role in in inculcating that culture on campus.
Got it. Yeah. No, I think moving on from that, how did FirstCheque happen? I think your stint at
Yeah.
Upgrad was for like about 2 years.
Yes.
Did FirstCheque happen? I mean, was that an idea that you came across when you were at Upgrad, saying I don't want to be working a job, but I want to be an investor? Was that always the plan, or did it happen by happen?
No, not at all. So after Upgrad, I was itching to. So Upgrad was a great experience, but it had become a big company in 2 years. Like when I joined, it was 30, 40 people, and it became 700 people in like 2 years' time. And I just felt
Right.
that this is not the place where I belong. I wanted to be back at the early stage. So I quit thinking I'll start a company again.
Right.
So and I spent some time exploring ideas. I ran some pilots. But a year flew by, and like I was still not really getting conviction on any of the things I was trying, where I felt I'll do this for 10 years more. And I had already run a startup before which had not worked. So this time I was way more apprehensive about jumping in before I had like full conviction on the market. Um,
Correct.
so in the middle of this, I met one of my friends at India Quotient, and I used to run my ideas by him, saying this is what I'm doing. So two, three times we met through that year, and by the end of the year, I realized that I'm out of personal runway, and none of my ideas have worked. So I went to them and said that, listen, can you hire me as an EIR, and I will work part time for you, and part time you can let me explore my ideas, and if I start something that you like, then maybe you fund me. Um, so they said we don't have an EIR role as such, and we can't afford that, but we want to start this program called FirstCheque. And they had this idea that we should maybe have a fund which will back founders through a network of founders, and yeah, so that's how it basically happened. So they told me, look, we don't have this. We don't have this. I mean, sorry, we have this idea of around building a fund that founders can deploy. So why don't you come on board and build it, run it, etc. We will figure out the capital and resources to do this, but you can like you take run it as your own thing. So then they named me CEO and said that you done this end to end. So that's sort of how it happened. To me, it sounded very exciting because I did have some network of founders back then, not as extensive as now, obviously, but I felt that it'll bring me back to being closer to early stage, which is where I wanted to go in the first place. And I originally took it up thinking I'll do this for 2 3 years, and then maybe I'll discover an idea or a co-founder I can start a business with again. So that's how it happened. And then I just started loving it. So by year three, I realized I'm good at this and I like doing this. So let me just, start my own fund now.
Right. No, I mean, most of like what you're saying is very similar to what we do at Rainmatter. I think, at Rainmatter, the idea was always, we'd like to support the startups and the
Yeah,
founders. And,
yeah,
but it's easier for us to do it because, we don't really have
yeah.
LPs. But how did it work
Yeah.
at first check? Because, I'm guessing, you had LPs and you had to kind of also speak to them and make them understand about the whole process,
Yeah,
right? So, being patient
yeah.
capital isn't really the name of the game in VC anyway. I think, it's very rare. So with First Check, were the LPs on board as well? Did you have a tough time kind of convincing them, or did they also
So
realize?
fortunately, this was India Quotient dealt with that. They were the anchor LPs and they set up the fund and they basically told me to deploy it. So I didn't have to bother too much about convincing LPs. I had to do a bit of it, but not much. It was they basically pulled in the money. And VCs also honestly do have, so there are people who do understand how VC works. Like most LPs in VC funds do not expect a return in like 3 years or 5 years. The usual fund cycles are 8 or 10 years. The first check cycle also 8 years. So um, if you enter a company at pre-seed or seed, then you're looking at a minimum 5 to 7 years before you get an exit. If you're going to, exit at, if you really want to make money, you have to hold that company till it becomes a 500 million or a 1 billion plus company. And this is, normal scenario. It takes at least 4 to 7 years or 8 years to, happen. Four if you're like very lucky. So that I don't think. So I would say it's not a mainstream investment asset class that most people understand, but there are a lot of people even in India who understand how VC works and that you need to wait and this is how returns work. Returns are backloaded, the power law. So all of these things, there are enough people in India now who understand this asset class. So I don't think that was an issue. Actually, finding the opportunities, getting into companies, putting a sort of process behind how are you going to pick these companies, how are you going to support them, why would they come back to you to raise their like why would they send their friends to you or why would they proudly recommend you as their first backer? So that those are things which were like way more challenging to build out.
Right. And how much of those learnings kind of pulled into All In Capital, what you're doing today? And, how did All In Capital happen? Like, I know you moved out of First Check last year when we initially spoke. Talk us through that transition as well. And also maybe the structure at All In about who are the LPs and if at all you can. And, how is it structured at this point in time?
Sure. So, I mean, by year three, it was evident that I'm liking what I'm doing, and I wanted to continue doing this. But First Check was a property owned and operated by IQ, and they had certain goals for it, which I didn't want to do for the next 5 years. But I did want to be in VC. So we had a chat, and then I told them I'll move out, and they found a replacement, and they came. They're now running the program. For me, it was about basically becoming a founder again in a way. I just wanted to own what I'm doing, so which is why I moved out and set up All In. I had a friend called Aditya, who I had known since 2019 now. He's also been a founder. He ran a company called Book My Forex, which Make My Trip bought. and after that he's worked at Amazon, and he had been doing these angel checks with me at FirstCheque. Whenever many of the companies we would back, he would also come and co-invest with me. You used to send me deals, and I used to pull him in into companies, and we just started talking a lot. At that time, he was also exploring a startup idea. So, I remember brainstorming with him on building some kind of platform for ESOP trading. So we were doing this kind of chats anyways, and then when I decided I'm moving out, so he said, okay, fine, like, I would love to join you and come on board as your along with you on your fund, because at that time he was working with Stride, which is a venture debt fund. So he was in the space, but his heart was always in early stage and not in venture debt. So he jumped on board, and then we started this together. It's a $10 million plus fund now, and we write checks from 100K to $300K in the first round when companies are just starting up. We are sector agnostic, so basically any founders from India we can look at and back as long as we see a large outcome that can come out of it. I'll talk more about the thesis and how we pick. Um, and on your question of LPs, there are broadly three sets of people. So there are large family offices, there are later stage VC funds, and there are HNIs. So these unicorn founders like Fareed, Apramya, with a bunch of them backed us, and then the other HNIs, people who have made money in tech, people who have like essentially these are the three buckets through which we raised capital, and yeah, that was an interesting journey because during my first check days, I didn't have to raise the fund, but here I very much did have to do it. So it was a new muscle to grow, and yeah, I'm happy we were able to do it.
Right. And in terms of sectors within All In, like as in, I know you're sector agnostic, but I'm guessing there has to be a couple of them which are probably your core expertise, right? So,
Yeah,
is
yeah,
like any of these sectors in terms of SaaS, fintech, some of the core focus areas for you?
yeah. So as of now, the split in the portfolio is 30% ish is basically B2B SaaS dev tools, where there are founders from India building these products for global markets. Uh, 20-30% more is B2B marketplaces. So, like for example, at First Check, I done companies like Fashions, Savio, Global Fair, people who are bringing Indian SMBs online and connecting them to global demand, and making them way more efficient, and making the entire supply chain way more efficient. Networks really pioneered this model, and now there are many of these companies sprouting up in India. India is uniquely placed for this kind of opportunity because our we have very few large companies. Most of the companies in India are small SMBs that operate, so there is some play there to aggregate them into these via these B2B marketplaces. The third category is anything in India consumer, so which includes D2C brand, it includes EdTech, it includes anything which is basically linked to the rising spending power of Indian consumers. So there are companies we have, like for example, from First Check, one of our best bets was a company called Jiva, which is a silver jewelry brand that has done really really well. Aditya had backed this company called Master Chow, which is doing really well. It's a Asian sauces brand, and they've just launched a instant noodles product as well. And then of course fintech. So fintech, we've done a bunch from All In, and even from First Check we had done Win12, which is a common portfolio company with Rain Matter. And from All In we have done two great companies there. One is in collections, and one is in lending against securities. Uh, so yeah, I think I would say the rest, and then once in a while we take deep tech bets also. Like we've backed a blood testing company which has built a blood testing machine which is 10x cheaper than your normal machines. And when you're at First Check, I used to do stuff like we did Bellatrix Aerospace, we did the E-plane company. So we do a lot of investments. We do them very very early, and we try and basically look for tech modes, like where do we see a change in the world where technology enables a new play essentially. Technology makes something possible which was not possible earlier. Those are our favorite type of investments to make. So, for example, Mail Modo we had done from First Check, I had invested where he built a whole email marketing suite on top of AMP's protocol. So now you can send interactive emails using Mail Modo. You can fill a form within a mail. You can play a game within an email. Email was thought of as this dead category where like all innovation was done and dusted, and then Akib came along and built a really great product there. Uh, So yeah, that's the broad thesis. Like 2020. So I think I didn't elaborate on the B2B piece. B2B SaaS DevTools, the thesis there is India now has a large number of people who have built great consumer grade products in our tech companies. They can now take those skills and apply them to building B2B SaaS products. Buyer behavior outside has changed. So earlier people, if you wanted to sell software in the US or Australia, you had to have a sales rep there who would go wear a suit and tie and take clients out for dinner and do the dog and pony show and then sell. Now buyers generally try your product online. If they like it, they go buy it. Maybe you can do a call or you can sell online essentially. That is the other big change. And third is developers. India has the largest market for developers. So we feel like a lot more companies like Postman should ideally emerge where because of the talent that is here and because of global distribution that is now available, we think there's a lot more that can happen on the dev tools front as well. So B2B SaaS, that is the thesis. Like great, of course, there's a cost arbitrage as well, but we don't back companies for that. We try and back companies where we think that the product is actually better than any that world class great product has been built out from it, and that is what we're trying to look for. So yeah, these 4 5 buckets: B2B SaaS, DevTools, B2B marketplaces, India consumer, and then deep tech. That is what I would bucket in. And within India consumer, everything comes in like tech, fintech, D2C brands. We do a bunch of that as well. So yeah, I hope I summarized that well.
Yeah, no, makes sense. I think in terms of consumer brands, we also keep talking about how India is quite well positioned for that market also, right? I think there are quite a few upcoming consumer brands now. I think over the next 5 to 6 years there'll be more of them. One of the other questions with All In Capital is, compared to last year to this year, have you seen the reduction in number of companies that come pitch to you? I'm guessing last year would have been absolutely a barrage of emails in terms of everybody wanting to pitch, but has this year been significantly lesser? And just in terms of a typical what happens through a round, from the initial call up until the end, if you can also probably talk about that, because I'm guessing you might be a little bit faster, right, as compared to regular VCs, etc., because of
Yeah.
the use of efficient processes, lesser meetings, lesser talking to, or at least lesser deliberations on the business models, etc. But just talk about how that decision making process also works.
Sure. See, so earlier at FirstCheque, we had this founder angel network that used to source deals, and then wherever they would tell us to invest, we would basically invest. That's how my investing journey started. Over time, I evolved into I started picking companies like I like this, I don't like this. What do I think about the model? Because they would send us too many deals, and I realized if I do everything, I run out of my money. Uh, so that now evolved into this model where the way we work is there's a flow chart. If one of my founder angel friends sends me a deal, like an Apramaya or Vidit or Farid or somebody who I know very well, or PJ from Dhan HQ sends a deal, then that is at the top of our priority list, and we will try and talk to that founder within the next 1 or 2 days and try and make a decision quickly. Especially if this founder angel has worked with this person in the past, or it's a area of expertise that they have. Like so, if PJ sends me a fintech deal, that is usually like right up top there, right? So that's what we do. Even if it's come directly to us, so we get deals from all kinds of sources now. These founder angels send us deals. Uh, Founders cold mail us, other VCs refer companies to us. I have now backed up 130 companies through FirstCheque and All In. So a lot of those founders send us companies. So all of these companies that come, via all of these channels, then we do one call, either me or my partner Aditya, we'll do one call if we think it's something in our domain area. If it's not, then we straight up pass and we try not to do calls where there's no way we are going to invest and there's no point wasting the founder's time. So on email itself, we maybe eliminate or remove 60 to 80% of our companies we would pass on the mail or the form itself, where either it's not a fit for us or it's beyond our stage or the sector doesn't make sense or whatever, right? But once we come on the call, one of Aditya or me does the first call. After that, we usually involve a founder angel who's a domain. If we like it, then the next step is a founder angel who's a domain expert or somebody else whom we know is a domain expert. We'll try and pull them in. Then if even they give a thumbs up that this checks out and the idea makes sense, then the other partner also does the call and then we decide. Usually this whole thing takes like 7 to 10 days. That's what we try and stick to. Sometimes it's delayed. Unfortunately, like sometimes you may not have enough data and it might stretch on for a month. Or sometimes you just want to wait and watch because you're not getting a strong signal. But by and large, we try and do a yes or no in like 7 to 10 days. Or we tell the founder upfront that it's not for us, and you can go to someone else, or we'll intro you to somebody else. So yeah, that's how the whole process of it works. Sorry, I think you asked another question as well, or did I answer the question entirely?
Correct. No, the other question was around the number of deals that you've seen last year versus this
Oh
year.
yes,
Yeah,
yes.
yeah.
Uh, so there has definitely been some drop, but I think net that's good. Like last year, it became just too glamorous to start a company, and everybody was trying to raise 2 to 5. Like somewhere in the last 3 years, like in 2019, people starting companies used to assume that if I could only get 2 3 crore rupees, I can start, I can get an office, and I can hire 5 6 people, and I can build something. That number somehow became $2 million in the last 2 years. That unless I get $2 million, I just can't start a company, which is actually BS. Like most people, you can start building a product with like no money also, and that's how most of the like biggest companies have been created. So I think a lot of these we are very mimetic, right? When we see our friends do something, we say, "Well, I can also do this," right? But we often don't understand that that guy maybe has been toiling away for 5 years, or 4 years. Like even, for example, a lot of college founders come and ask me, "Should I start a college startup?" Uh, and they think, oh, Zuckerberg did it, or this guy did it, that guy, the postman guy did it from campus, right? But the postman guy was coding since before he came to college, right? So he's not really a college founder. He has like that 4 years of experience behind him. So people don't see the backstory of these people who have made it in 2021 and 2022, and a lot of people just jumped in the game thinking even I can do this. We like to call them tourist founders, that they just looked around them and said, "Oh, this is happening. Even maybe I can jump in." Without an original insight, or without a real burning sort of ambition to solve a problem. So that crowd has sort of reduced. There was a lot of people trying to do it. This happened in 2015 also. Suddenly you saw a lot of consultants starting companies, a lot of MBA guys saying this is the, like, whenever this crowd starts doing, obviously not all consultants or MBAs are bad founders, but if you see a sudden upsurge in them, then that's a sign of an inflated market. So that started happening in again 2022, and I think that has reduced now. Like, so essentially, let's put it this way: when people who start companies because they think funding is easily available are by definition bad founders, and that ratio has sort of corrected now.
Got it. And the next question is a segue to that. I think in terms of finding, I think in terms of the ideas, I think you were talking about how you're looking at the sector very deeply. You're also getting some experts to also kind of look at the ideas and the sectors. But in terms of the founders themselves, how do you identify a good founder? Obviously, there's no right answer to it.
Yeah.
Everybody has different metrics to kind of identify and say evaluate founders. But I'm guessing there has to be some metric that you developed over looking or speaking to so many founders over the past 3 4 years. I'm guessing there has to be something or a north star that you kind of have for evaluating founders. What can that be? I mean, generally for even micro VCs, I think one of the challenges is this. I think the more I speak to people, the more folks kind of tell me that the difficult part is not validating the idea. The difficult part is identifying and seeing if the team is suitable to kind of like run this idea. So how do you kind of like go through that process?
Yeah, so uh, this is very hard, and honestly, even I'm still learning, because you would really know if you were right after like 6 7 years, and I've been investing for 4 years now. So a lot of the companies I backed that I thought were great have not done well, and some of which one I thought are not that great have really done well. So you learn with time. Uh, but there are some frameworks to develop to sort of recognize who's really in it. The biggest one was who's really committed. Like all-in is the name of the fund, because this one pattern that came out very strongly was that you really have to be all in to make this happen. It's not like people think it's a trivial thing to say. Obviously, you have to be committed to build a company, but you have no idea what the amount of commitment it takes. It's like years and years and years of 12-hour days and no weekends, and like all your friends are making normal money, and you need an insane amount of conviction on what you're doing. So that usually it comes out when you talk to people for couple of times, or maybe 2 3 4 times. Hopefully, I would like to believe that we do tend to recognize that commitment that they have to the idea or to whatever they're building. Apart from that, there are certain patterns which emerge which you can look for. So we look for founder market fit, where there are usually some necessary conditions, of necessary traits the founder must have for each type of business that they're building. So for example, for a uh, let's say social network company, we don't back them if they don't have a strong CTO on board. Like that's just we don't think that works because you need that either like a one very strong person has to be a co-founder who's a technically gifted person, or like one founding team member. Ideally, like it has to be a co-founder ideally, right? Because social networks are all about building, launching, seeing what works, iterating till you hit upon something and really start scaling. So usually we have seen without a CTO, it's very hard to build a social network business. But if you're like so if you're like a consultant, ex McKinsey guy trying to build a social network, usually I won't take that bet. Maybe I'll be wrong, but I wouldn't take that bet. But those kind of people would be great at starting like a B2B marketplace, maybe, or maybe a D2C brand where they have to run operations, they have to do marketing, they have to do brand building. Um, there they excel, or e-commerce marketplaces, right? So all of those process-driven businesses they will excel at. So we look a lot like, or for example, dev tools business. If like a sales guy comes and pitches a dev tools business, usually it's a no because they will never get to the audience that they're building for, or so that's we look for that founder market fit. We also look for something. So there are different frameworks that do. There's one called Earn Secret, where often you will meet a guy who because of their past background, they learn something about the world which other people don't know yet. So, for example, the Rigi founders, they were earlier running Hala Play, and they knew that these creators exist who are running these lakhs of Telegram groups, and they actually manually add people to each group every month, and then they see, okay, 500 people paid for this month, next month only 450 paid, so they'll make a new group and manually add 450 people to that group, and imagine doing that every month. And like as your numbers grow up, your manual work just keeps exploding. This just seemed stupidly weird, right? And they came us with screenshot saying, "This is how it's working. There are so many of them. We are going to automate this billing and help creators easily charge subscription." So it was a no-brainer idea, and they'd built Hala Play before. They knew how to build consumer tech companies. So yeah, like that earned secret framework works very well. I feel like they'll usually these kind of founders end up teaching you something on the call, which will make a light bulb go off in your head. Also saying, okay, yeah, that's like an insight they have about the world, which regular people don't have. Um, then we also really like young teams with insane energy when a good like complementary skill set. Like if there are like two, three founders who have just graduated from, but like that two, three of them can code. One is a designer, maybe. Those kind of teams, if they're like bond is like really strong and they stick to one problem for long enough, they will make it in the end. They'll keep pivoting, they'll keep iterating, but as long as they're really committed to it, there's a good chance some outcome will come out. So we sometimes fund that kind of a team as well, where we are not really sure if this is the idea that will make it, but we just like that team so much that we want to be in business with them. So once in a while we will do that, but that is rare. Like it's very rare to find that level of commitment and that level of like your skill sets need to be amazing for you to be able to do this off, and your commitment needs to be amazing. So that's another framework. Uh, and usually, like you just get this sense from great founders that they will do it with or without you. Like they don't pause because they didn't raise money, or they got like they just break through. Like you look for patterns where people they just walk through doors. Like they don't wait for somebody to open it. They'll figure out a way to make it happen, and that hustle is what we look for in every team we fund. So yeah, that's some of the patterns and frameworks that we use to recognize these founders.
Right. No, you spoke about this. I think when you were answering the previous question, you spoke about how you get a lot of deals from a lot of your network. Right. I think obviously that signaling kind of matters a lot to you because you can probably filter a lot of those startups that way. But are there other channels you get leads as well? As in, do you kind of speak to accelerators or incubators in colleges across IITs, IIMs, etc.? I mean, is that also a part of the deals pipeline that you kind of get? My
Yes.
Yeah, my second question or second part of that question is this whole signaling bit in VC. Right? I mean, say you're doing a deal and there are three other VCs kind of wanting to do that deal. Obviously, your instinct is to say that if there are three other people kind of wanting to do this, there has to be something right. But other times when you kind of have to hold back and say no, I'm not going to do this even though my network wants me to do it. Everybody's saying right things, but I don't feel right about it. So, is there that element of gut feeling also when you have that signaling as a VC in a micro VC fund, at least you have to be very selective in terms of where you do capital. Just wanted to have those two questions kind of tied up together.
Absolutely. So on one, yes, we usually, I mean, we don't, for us, it doesn't matter where it came from unless like a person I really respect recommends a person that they respect. That's a unique case. But most of our deals come by, directly inbound. People just apply on our website. People cold DM me on LinkedIn or cold mail me or my partner. Or other VCs also connect us a lot. So oftentimes later stage fund will send us a company saying, we like this team, but we think they're like too early for a 2 million check, but why don't you guys take a look at it for smaller check? So that happens a lot. Because every founder when they start they think I'm going to go raise 2 million from Sequoia or Axel or Nicely, right? And then obviously they can't fund everyone. But a lot of them are really good, so then they pass on some of these companies to us. Then incubators, accelerators, we don't have like formal tabs, but like oftentimes they'll just mail us saying this is one of our company and they are raising around. You want to take a look at it, and we are happy to do that. For your second part of the question was,
The first question or the second question was, do you have to hold yourself back sometimes when,
oh yes, yes,
yeah,
on this other VC. So when you start reinvesting, you think that's a big signal, but after a while, like now I don't. I don't honestly don't care who else is investing because. Like I've learned this the hard way. Usually, the hotter the deal is that seed, like they don't end up anywhere later on. Like I've seen so many companies where MDs of these billion-dollar funds fought over getting a 2 million allocation or a 5 million allocation at seed pre-product founders, right? And the company went nowhere after that. And many times I've just seen it happen like so many times now that I've realized that finally, even like, see, whoever's taking the bet, whoever you think is a signal it's not their only bet. They are also taking a portfolio of bets, and there may be other reasons they're doing it which you don't know about. Also, it's a question of position sizing as well. For a $1 billion fund to take a $1 or $2 million bet is honestly a write-off. Like it's a rounding error, so it doesn't mean much at pre-seed and seed is what I've learned. Founders don't get that yet. Most people think that if this tier A fund funds me, then I must be doing something right? I must have made it, but I don't think there's any strong. Um, it probably means you have like a 10% chance of making it, maybe, or 20% chance, or 10 to 15% chance, maybe. So it doesn't really. So the problem though is that these kind of deals where it's where everybody's trying to jump in, then usually you will end up making a bad decision because there's not enough time. So you will be like, you will get a company on Friday saying, tell us by tomorrow or by Monday. Otherwise, it's slow. So now I've just started saying it's fine, I'll pass. Because there will be another one along shortly, right? So it's okay. Like we all need, it's like a buffet, right? You can go eat what you like. You
correct.
don't have to go look at what the other guy is eating. There's enough for all of us. So it takes some time to get there. And I wouldn't say I'm 100% there. It's very hard to, think for yourself and decide like this is like I don't see the sense in what these guys are doing because you'll often get a call saying why didn't you do it like there was this ex-MD from Y Fund did this amazing founder deal, why did you pass? I didn't understand. I didn't understand. Like you can't justify that to an LP saying that I invested here because he was investing, right? The LP is paying me fees for my judgment. They are not paying me to manage. Like if I'm investing on their judgment, then they'll go invest in their fund, right? Why are they paying me fees? So it takes some time to get enough um, confidence in your own intuition and gut feel to stick to that, but it's essential. Otherwise, you will get destroyed. Like if you just do deals where other people are investing, you will get destroyed.
Correct. No, I think that is absolutely what I've been reading about in some of these blogs. Right? I think last year all of these folks who had started new funds, I think ended up doing a large portion of their deals because somebody else was doing it, and I think almost all of those deals went nowhere this year. So
Yeah.
the other part of that question, or say an extension to that question is, are you seeing a change in mindset for Indian founders? I think some of these early stage founders that you're meeting, um, are they now more inclined to raise from a smaller VC or a fund which is like 10, $20 million as opposed to say some of the larger tier one VCs at the early stage, because they might get more support, more handholding, more feedback in terms of their product, etc. Is that happening? Like, I mean, because as you're saying, I think a large section of the founders still want to raise from a tier one VCs from a signaling standpoint at the get go. But are there founders out there who you're speaking to who are now changing that mindset, saying maybe that's not the right thing for us?
Um, Somewhat, but largely no. Most people still, it's like it's become a pipeline that oh, you go to IIT, you went to IIM, now you must go to YC, and then you raise from Sequoia. Like that's the gold-plated resume that people. It's like it's very hard to break out of that brand name chasing nature that most of us have. The unfortunate answer is no. Most people don't want to like. Honestly, it doesn't matter that much. My gripe is not that most founders just want to raise from the tier A fund. That is a logical thing to do. If I was starting a company, I would want to go raise from one of the tier A funds. The point is when they go to raise. The problem is people feel that I should get $2 million because I decided to quit my job, right? Like that is where the problem lies. People don't spend enough time talking to users, don't spend enough time in the market, don't build a product out, like, and then you're going to like most people make a fool of themselves when they try and raise money pre-product because they don't have original insight. They don't even believe in it themselves yet. Like if you double click three, four, five times, you will realize that this person is going to give up in 2 or 3 months because they haven't really spent that much time, uh, stewing in that idea. So there's that stewing phase which is essential, and in that phase, if you go talk to VCs, uh, it's kind of pointless because you haven't built your own thesis yet, your own conviction yet. So I would say people should spend at least 2, 3, 6 months with their customers, with their users, maybe build an MVP, just maybe, very sure you want to do this for 10 years. You would really think this market is going to become a $1 billion market. Because once you get those insights and once you really have that understanding of your customer's pain point, how will you sell to them? How will you price it? Why will they buy you? Why would they choose you over competition? Those things matter way more than which VC funded you. Like way, like 100 times more, right? So the problem is people try and skip it and say, let me just make a B plan and deck and I have these great credentials and I'll just go raise $2 million and then I'll have a great company started. But my views is you kind of ruin your chances if you go raise money before you have those insights because then you got on the treadmill but you have not really worn your shoes yet. It's not kind of like that. So you need to take some time, prepare, figure out what you want to do, build your team. Like a user bit is the most important. Like it's crazy how many founders just come pitch and like when you double click, you'll find out they've maybe spoken to like five people about the idea or like why are you talking to me, man? I have no idea what like you should be talking to people who are your customers, right? So a lot of founders look at us for validation basically. If Kushal gave me money or if YC or whoever, some investor gave me money, I must be doing something right. That's what's going on in their mind, which is a very, very like bad line of thinking because we don't know exactly what we are doing. We are also, most investors are sort of taking a directional guess, and it's a question for us. The question is, we have to be right sometimes to be able to really make it work. But for you, it's your company. You have to be right this one time. Like you don't have other shots in on goal, right? So just take your time. There's no hurry. Like if you're going to do this for 10 years, just take 3 months to or 6 months to talk to users and like just be very sure about what you're doing before you decide to go start raising money for the idea. I think that is where I would like maybe founders should just think more about um, uh, think more about how much time they're spending with users versus investors. And otherwise there's no obviously you need money to start a business and hire people, etc. So you have to get to this eventually. But before you do it, you should like when you go meet investors, you should have done your stewing in the idea.
Correct. Correct. So one final question on All In Capital. How many deals do you kind of look at on a monthly basis? I'm guessing, probably a lot to kind of sort through, but how many
Yeah,
are
we see I think 300 to 500 companies a month is what we see. Yeah, maybe we end up doing calls with 80, 60 to 80, I guess. Yeah, and then we end up funding one or two every month.
got it? In terms of, just to segue out from All In to the LPs, right? I mean, in terms of what's happening in the VC space, What's your sense of what's going to happen over the next couple of years? Because last year or 2021, 2022, with almost $35 billion coming in, I think the next couple of years is going to be 30-40% lower, right? I mean, already seeing a lot of the money flowing out, or at least a lot of these VCs and LPs kind of reducing their commitments. And what's going to happen over the next couple of years? I mean, any sense in terms of all the conversations that you've been having?
Honestly, I don't know. Like I always feel like this kind of market prediction question I'm bad at. I don't think that's my job. We look for great people starting awesome companies, which I feel will be very valuable 5 to 7 years from now.
Correct.
And those people start companies all the time. They also don't look at the like this is a very VC mentality. कि वो market में क्या चल रहा है, right?
Correct.
It's a very investor thing to do.
Correct.
The best founders don't care, and like they just had a great idea. They built something. People want that thing, and they're going to go sell it. So that thing will keep happening every month, every week, every year. So that doesn't stop. That's the cycle of human innovation. Uh, but I think if I had to guess, I would say a lot more. Like clearly the large rounds have stopped. Like 100 million, 500 million rounds, they have kind of stopped for now.
Yeah.
So these and people who are investing before these guys, the guys putting 20 million checks, 50 million checks, they have also stopped because they feel like, okay, if I put in 20 million, who's going to put in 50 or 100 after me?
Correct.
Also, the problem is a lot of the people putting money of like the 50, 100 million check sizes, they put them at insane valuations in 2020 and 21, 22. So they are underwater there. So if you look at public stock prices, they have crashed like 50%, 80% on many of the tech stocks. But these private investors invested in these companies at those valuations in the past 3 years. So LPs are going to wait it out and see, when do these guys come back again in the black. So and because of that, everything before that slows down. So that is currently where we are at. But I think maybe the AI wave might change that in a way. Like I do think something special is happening there. And as I said, great things keep like technological innovation doesn't stop because the markets like the Buffett describes the market really well, right? It's like a schizophrenic person. One day they'll give you a crazy deal, and one day they'll later lowball you. So that's just sort of what is happening in VC right now. There were crazy prices in 21, 22, and now there's like the best founders are like stocked at why is nobody giving me even 500K. So I think that will continue. I don't think like it's hard to say it will last 1 year or 2 years or 3 years, but at some point, because technical innovation doesn't stop, at some point the market will also bounce back.
Got it. No, that makes sense. I think in terms of what your portfolio startups and founders are kind of asking you, I mean, do they have questions around this, or are they also head down saying, we'll focus on the product, we'll focus on the service, we'll look at our customers, and we'll eventually make it. I think
No, a lot of them read a lot, like because of the environment and all the VCs saying, oh, it's doom and gloom on Twitter and all the
Correct.
articles coming out. Everybody thinks, oh, how will I raise my next round? But honestly, up till Series A, I don't think there is an issue. So if you've raised like 500K, your next goal is probably to raise like 200 or
Right.
$2-3 million. That those rounds are happening. Even and India is actually more insulated than the US. Here, the sentiment is far better than the US. Over a macro perspective, also we did not. We're not in a recession. We are growing really fast and like things are booming here right now. So the sentiment here is pretty good. So $2-3 million rounds are happening fairly regularly. I would say the 10 mil plus rounds have slowed down a lot.
Correct.
So if you're at that stage, then yes, you have to then plan much more. Be more cautious with your budgets. If you were planning for 18 months earlier, now you need to plan for 24, 36 months.
Right.
So everybody above that stage who has like serious burn has already done that last year, I think, and at least people who had good business models have been able to do it.
Correct.
Now what will happen is a lot of the companies who got too much money prematurely without a business model might end up running through it, and they'll shut down, or somebody will buy them, or they'll merge, and this will happen all the way from like the Series A companies to the unicorns as well, because that happened across the spectrum. For the like usually people used to take seed bet, like idea plus founder bets. People used to take only for pre-seed, seed, maybe a Series A company, but people started doing that for Series B, C, D as well, which
Right.
was quite nuts. So all of that will now come back to bite everybody, and it's okay. It's a part of the cycle. The same thing happens in stock markets as well. I don't think it's um, something unique to VC. Wherever people smell opportunity, there's alpha in the beginning, but then when too many people pile on, the alpha goes away for a while, and then again people they run away from there, and then again there's that. So that's just that those waves keep coming and going.
Got it. And in terms of the last year and this year, what have been some of the challenges? I think we spoke about some of them. I think getting past that clutter in terms of all the noise around some of the spaces, some of the sectors, some of the startups, etc. But have there been any specific challenges that maybe you can warn some of the emerging managers or the funds that want to set up this year? Have there been particular challenges that you'd like to share?
Um, yeah, it's definitely a hard time for fundraising. LPs. I mean, for example, what happened with FTX, right? Like earlier, people would go to an LP and say, "Look, I have this unicorn in my portfolio, or this company is valued at 500 million, so my stake here is worth X million or whatever." LPs are now just saying, "I don't care about what your paper stake is
Right.
worth. If you sold in 21, you delivered cash exits, then that mattered. Otherwise, I don't know what to make of your paper returns." So those questions have become much more harder now because if you've been investing for 4 5 years, you wouldn't have cash
Right.
returns. Most people start getting returns after that. So it's definitely become way harder to raise a fund. Uh, LPs will also ask you questions on what is like. See, I think so surprisingly, VC itself is a very commoditized and very
Correct.
competitive
Yeah.
space. Basically, all of us sell capital and try and back
Yeah.
the best
Yeah.
founders. So for an LP, there are like 20 other options. In India, maybe 50 other options, and in US there are 1,000 options where they can invest. So why would they pick you? Like what is your edge? Are some special type of founders coming to only you, which they're not going to other people? Or you can pick really well, right? Or like, so what's your edge? Basically, is a question that you need a good answer to. Which so if you're an emerging manager, you need to really think hard on that piece. Like what can I do better than the current VCs in the market? Like why do I think I will be able to source or pick founders better than everybody else? Because there are a lot of us. It's not 2015 anymore, right? So um, yeah, that would be my like 2 cents to somebody starting a fund right now.
Got it. Got it. So, I think we've spoken about most topics. So, one other question is, how often do you, kind of update your LPs? How often does that happen? I mean, is it, quarterly? Is it annually? And what is like a best practice there? Is there one size fits all, or generally it depends upon the kind of rapport you have with the LP?
So we do it monthly,
Okay.
which is actually rare. I think most funds do quarterly, but we are a pre-seed stage fund, and a lot of our LPs also back us because they want to invest in these companies directly in like follow-on rounds.
Correct.
At pre-seed, things move fast. So, like in a quarter, like it's possible a company would have like 3 4x or maybe sometimes 10x their numbers as well, right? So
Right.
we do it quarter monthly, but I think depend on the stage you're at and what you have committed to your LPs, and also the kind of how dense your communication is. Like if you're giving like a very detailed report, you can't do that every month. Maybe you
Right.
do that once in 6 months or a year. But so we communicate every month on what are the companies we've invested in
Okay.
and what's doing well in the portfolio. So these two things we communicate, and then overall like deeper analysis we do annually. Maybe we'll start doing that also once in 6 months. So yeah, that's how we do it.
Got it. And one of the podcasts I keep listening to, it's called Invest Like the Best. And one of the final questions that they generally ask is, what's the kindest thing somebody has done for you, right? So I'm going to ask that question before I have one other final question. So what's been one of the kindest things somebody's done for you? From engineering to up until now. I'm guessing there have been lots of them. So I'm maybe pushing you to kind of select one.
So my mentor, Professor Handa at IIM, right? He's a legend in the IIM Ahmedabad circles.
Right.
He used to run a company called Core Healthcare, which was like valued at 1,500 crores in the 90s. There was an IPO company.
Okay.
He now has set up a very good school in Ahmedabad called Eklavya School. He's a big guy.
Right.
For a
Right.
college student, that was like this guy's way out, like severe, several out orbits above me in life.
Right.
I had sent him like this long ass mail when he was in fourth year. Like it was, if I get this kind of mail today, I probably wouldn't read it.
Right.
But he read it. He read the whole thing. I don't know what all I had written in that. I am from here. This is what I'm doing. I want to start a company. I read this Steve Jobs book. He actually read it and he mailed me saying, "You can't meet me." And then me and my partner went and met him, and like the amount of time and effort he spent with us to just understand our idea, guide us, tell us what to do. It just gave us insane validation that yeah, we're not crazy. We can actually start a company. So that was and there was a lot of time to invest in like some kid who just mailed you. Like he put us up in his own house. Like that was insane. Like we landed up there saying, okay, what is happening here? So
Right.
he and for nothing, like he didn't take any advisory equity or any nothing. Like just to help two kids out, he did that. That was for sure the kindest thing somebody has done for me.
Got it. And one final question, and maybe I'm gonna force you to pick another incident because what's been one life-changing moment for you? I mean, it can be working with Upgrad or working with FirstCheque or working with All In. But is there one particular instance you look back and say, hey, if I had not done that, maybe I'd be doing something else? And as an attachment to that question, if you're not a VC or an investor today, say you weren't at All In, what would you be doing? What would you be really good at?
Hmm. So I would say I learned the art of sales at Bits. That I sold a lot of random stuff on campus, from t-shirts to news. Like so, I eventually became the sponsorship club head. So from first year onwards, we should just cold call people and ask them for money. Okay, like basically that's what you do as
Right.
you're trying to raise sponsorship, right? So all kinds of, and like some of the deals would be, I'll sell your coaching class, on campus, and you give us a cut for a festival. And I sold a subscription for Business Standard. We sold some 500 plus subscriptions in an engineering campus.
Right.
We sold t-shirts. So we like literally from first year or some way or the other, I was somehow ended up doing sales jobs, and which was quite weird because I was actually an introvert before that. So this sort of just grew this new muscle through Bits, and that I think was a transformational experience. Uh, Now I feel like I have this ability where you can just like I don't have to like I can just talk to somebody without prep. I can show up somewhere and talk, or I can cold call whoever I want. So that sales skill is something which Bits did really well. So not Bits, I picked that up at Bits really really well, and that definitely changed my life. A lot of what I did after that has basically been, see, as a founder or as a VC or as like sales is like a core skill in life. You're either selling yourself, trying to sell your product, or you're trying to hire somebody again. So whether you're raising money, whatever you're doing, you're basically selling in one way or another, right? So that muscle is something I really really appreciate that Bits gave me the opportunity to develop.
Right. And what would you be today if you weren't an investor?
This honestly I don't know. I would maybe founder only, but what what I would start I don't know. But yeah, I know I can't do a job anymore in life. I just don't not cut out for that. So yeah, I would have to do some kind of business. So but yeah, like I don't know what it would be, but definitely be an entrepreneur.
Got it. And I've got a few fun rapid fire questions. Maybe you can skip a few of them in case you can't think of any. But
Okay.
so I'll go. Like I think there are some 6, 7 questions I've noted down. So what's the craziest pitch you ever got? Like what's one of the outlandish pitches that you've ever seen?
Uh The E-plane guys, they came and told us we'll build a flying airplane and electric airplane. We packed them as well. That was pretty crazy.
Okay, was that a long time ago or was that like recently?
That was 2020.
Okay.
2020 is when we invested.
Okay. What's the one biggest mistake that you kind of look back as a VC?
This FOMO thing, like in 2020, in 2019 or 2020, I used to get very enamored by companies where a larger VC was leading the round, and I would try and see if we can also get in, or even if a company that we funded would raise money from a good VC, we would think, okay, this is work. But then over a time, you realize that that doesn't really mean it's work. Like till a business has started working, you can't really say that. So Um, that's been a big sort of lesson to learn.
Right. And what's one of the most, or say, this could be in your portfolio, outside your portfolio, one of the most impressive startups you've seen, last year, this year?
So I'll speak about a couple of our FirstCheque companies, right? So Jiva has done really well. Jiva has absolutely killed it. They're now setting up stores across the country and like amazing brand they've built up. Um then Rigi is doing really well. Mail Modo is doing really well. Mental Health is doing really well.
Right.
So there are others as well, but these like four, five have really, I think, managed to break out of the clutter and become like widely adopted. So
Got it.
yeah, from my portfolio, I would name these guys. Outside my portfolio, companies that I think have broken out.
Postman, maybe?
Yeah, actually, yeah, Postman, yeah.
Yeah.
So I mean, then that universe is really large, so
Correct.
it's
Yeah.
hard to pick one or two.
Correct. Correct. How do you, keep up with, say, trends, or, just updates in the space? I mean, I'm sure it includes a lot of reading, but I mean, do you follow particular substacks, particular blogs, particular podcasts?
So I get most of my information direct through Twitter. I try and curate the people I follow there and the handles I follow there, and through that, a lot of great content sort of pops up in my feed.
Right.
Uh, Podcasts I used to listen to a lot, but since work from home started, my driving stopped, so I don't get a chance anymore. So when I go for walks, I listen to podcasts, but it's dramatically reduced now, I would say. But the ones I like are Invest Like the Best. The All In podcast also a nice one. Then we Reed Hoffman's podcast was really nice. So that's quite
The
actually,
recent, the recent one, I think it's called. I think they released one recently, mostly talking about climate and energy, etc. I think that's what it
no,
is.
he did one on AI also recently.
Oh yeah,
That one was very nice.
right,
He did an interview with Sam Altman.
correct.
Uh, but yeah, like no real like podcast. I was something I was really into till 2019, 20. But after that, it sort of dropped off because my driving stopped.
Okay,
Uh,
okay,
but books I read, Twitter gives me most of my information diet, and like Stratechery is one publication I try reading as much as possible. Really like what they write.
makes sense. What's the one misconception about your job or you as a VC, that people probably have?
The validation piece, they think if I give you money, then you made it, right? Like I think that's the biggest one. People, it's not, you're not clearing an exam here, right?
Correct.
It's not like, okay, you gave IIT and you got in, so, oh yeah. No, like, this is very different. Like, your journey now begins. It's not the end. Like, so people assume getting a VC check is the goal. That is not the goal. That is a tool you're going to buy, and now you have to go build the thing that you want to do with that tool.
What's the one piece of advice you'd like to give to anybody in VC?
Be more kind. I think most founders don't like. I've been the naive first time founder, so I know when you just don't know things, you end up doing it. Like Handa sir replied to my that 2 page note I sent him, so he didn't really have to do that.
Correct.
So just be more kind to people who don't know what they're doing, because at some point they will figure it out. Kids have a way of like, I like, founders, the best founders, they transform like Pokemon in a way. Like you will
Right.
see them in 2019, 2020, 23 means a different guy altogether. You'll look at
Correct.
them be like, man, this guy is just completely gone from, that Charmander to Charmeleon or then, whatever. So
Yeah.
it's crazy. Like you can really see that in a person evolve that fast. So be kind, like, because, uh, yeah, they like with the best founders just absorb things like a sponge, and very soon they know more than you.
So one final question to wrap this up. So one development technology industry you're very excited about. Please don't say ChatGPT and AI, because I'm quite scared of that technology myself. But even if that's the answer, so be it. But one technology, one say industry you're very excited about for the next couple of years.
I mean, it has to be AI. It's pretty crazy right now what's happening. I'm not scared as such. Honestly, I don't think. I think this AGI thing is overblown, and I don't think like this. There's a podcast called, actually, yeah, there's a very good podcast called The Pessimist Archive.
Oh yeah, yeah.
Uh,
I've read their blog. I'm yet to listen to
yeah,
the podcast.
it's
Yeah.
it's awesome. They go back to, every time a new technology came out, how the world reacted. It's always the same thing. We are all going to die. It's just gloom and
Correct. Correct.
like the funniest one was when Walkman came out.
Yeah.
All the papers were full of editorials like this is the devil's talking to our kids, and they're always there. They're socially awkward now. They don't talk to other kids, right? Same like sounds very much the same like what people said about phones later on, right? So even with television, with when cars came out, people passed laws saying that one guy has to stand in front of the car and ring a bell.
Correct.
Only then you can drive a car because people should know a car is coming, right?
Right.
So
Right.
when the first lifts came out, automated lifts, all the people who used to work at lifts as a liftsman in New York City went on strike. The whole city was sort of shut down for a few days or weeks, and so this keeps happening. Like I don't think it is. Human people just always overestimate how much technology can do and underestimate what humans can do.
Right.
We went to the moon, man. Like we
Right.
can do a lot of stuff, and I don't think we will like we need to be afraid of this. This is going to like if I look at me personally, how much I can get done in a day today versus what I could get done in 2012. It is already 10x because of the phone.
Right.
Because I have Google Maps. I don't have to think about where I can just press a button and I'm like now I'm there. I don't have to ask for directions. I can mail people from my phone. I like all of this was not there 10 years back, right? So we have already 10x productivity of knowledge workers is my judgment, and I think it will 10x more from your with AI. So what a single person could do, it's like we are becoming superhumans is what is happening. I don't think so it's very hard to miss. AI is pretty awesome. I think what like with everybody becoming a superhuman, just think of the stuff we can create. I think we're entering a golden age of prosperity.
Right. No, just to kind of talk about this, the reason I think why there's a lot of skepticism around this is because of the industries that's going to touch it. I mean, obviously, that same pessimistic or pessimist archive that you spoke about, I think it spoke about industrial revolution. It spoke about the age when computers kind of became very at every household, etc. So a lot of jobs were at risk during a lot of these revolutions in the past. But doesn't this seem a little too extreme, little too disruptive? Because this is not just low-paying jobs at risk, right? I mean, this is also high-paying jobs now at risk. I mean, anybody who's doing anything that has to do with sitting in front of a computer and typing, I think, is at risk. So that's the scary part. I think that most people are looking at. But obviously, as you said, I think if it's going to improve productivity, then makes no sense. But I think that whole system of putting guardrails in place for something like this, I think that's going to be very important over the next couple of years. But I mean, any thoughts on that? Yeah.
In a way, yes. So the scary piece is just the pace of transformation, not the transformation itself. That is inevitable. But to be honest, right, like if I look at the jobs, me and my batchmates, right, if I look at the batch of bits 2012, who have, all of us graduated then, and what are we doing today?
Correct.
Most of these really cool jobs did not exist in 2012.
Correct.
There was no crypto, there was no micro VC, there was no ecosystem where you can go raise money. So usually technological trends tend to create a lot of new jobs which did not exist before. And again, that keeps happening and that keeps happening. So because you are making your economy more efficient, you're giving people more power to do a lot more. So individually you get affected. Like if you were a lift man in New York City in that time, yes, you lost your job, but there were other opportunities. Like the buildings became way higher, so they needed a lot more people to man the stations there. And I'm sure there were other jobs created because like you could now have like these skyscrapers. Or rather, you didn't need people manning the lifts, right? So that did make things more efficient. So I think it keeps. Even with cars, like I'm sure there are people who should drive around horse carriages. So there would be people, manning stables and grooming horses, and like we don't need that anymore. So, but you had jobs of automobile workers, factories came up, mechanics jobs came up. Mechanic was not a job which existed before the car. So similar things will come again. I think even like social media consultant, I remember this was a new job in 2010. It was not a job before that. SaaS sales, customer success is a new job. It was no job like this 10 years back.
Correct.
So there are enough opportunities which come, and the key is to just like teach Actually, I even teach. I don't think like with the internet, like the opportunity to just go and learn something, that is also coming. Like that barrier has come down, 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 down. Like whatever I do now, I would say 99% of it is because from what I've learned and read on the internet and from what people I've met through the internet.
Correct.
That is a barrier that Chat GPT and AI is reducing further, which is very, very powerful. Which means it doesn't matter which village you were born in. It doesn't matter what language you can speak. If you have that phone and your internet connection works and you're curious, you can literally do anything. That is, in fact, I remember reading this thing about that Neeraj Chopra apparently used to watch videos of javelin throwing on YouTube. That's where his journey began. So, think of what else can happen. This country has so much talent. The world has so much talent. Everybody has access to information now. Everybody has access to the internet. So I think it's a very exciting time.
Perfect. No, thanks again, Kushal, for this 1 hour and 10 minutes of absolute fun. So thanks again for taking out time to do this.
My pleasure. Thanks, Dinesh.
Thanks, Kushal. Bye. Bye.
Bye.